In behalf of our Executive Director, Noel C. Binag, we will have an opening remarks by Sir Ray Jose Soriano.
Good morning. Magandang umaga po sa atin lahat. Naririnig po ako.
Yes, sir.
Meron
Yes,
ba
sir.
unmute
Clear po.
myself?
Good morning, sir.
Okay, good morning po. Okay, on behalf of our Executive Director who is also attending an equally important event, I was tasked to read his message, no? So, here it goes. Director Binag sends his apologies for not being with us, but rest assured that this event is really being supported by the Executive Director. Isa po sa mga major program na itong webinar series na to. Okay. This is the 13th episode of our online public information campaign. This webinar aims to discuss salient OSHC-related issuances and practical tips to prevent work-related accidents, injuries, and illnesses. Continue attending our series to learn different ways to further improve your company's OSH programs and policies, and earn training hours which are creditable if you're applying as OSH practitioner or OSH consultant in the future. It is also credited if you're being designated as SO2 or SO3. Today's discussion will be focused on the calibration of equipment and interpretation of Calibration Certificate. Maintenance and calibration of equipment is important to ensure precise and accurate measurements in the workplace. We have invited subject matter expert to explain further the importance of equipment calibration and interpretation of Calibration Certificate. We are honored to have with us first Engineer Roxanne Rojas, President and founder of Premier Physics Metrology, Ma'am Sheila Abellan, and Sir Grete Duenos. Tama po ba? Grace?
Gretel.
Anyway. Ha?
Gretel po. Miss Gretel po.
Gretel Duenos. Sorry po. Malabo na mata ng ano nyo.
Okay lang po.
Nyo. Okay. Before I end, I would like to urge all of you to become OSH champions. As a matter of, yun yung battle cry namin. Lahat tayo pwedeng maging OSH champion. In our own little way, in our own capacity. We can all be OSH champion. Kindly share your expertise in the promotion of safety and health to your coworkers. Yung mga learnings po na matututunan natin not only on this webinar, but dun sa ibang pinoprovide din ng OSHC na mga training, kindly share it to your coworkers, no? So that we will be able to promote safety and health in our workplace. You can also share it to your family. Ika nga, hindi lang pang workplace, pang pamilya pa. Mapapansin nyo naman, all that we've been sharing with you can be practiced in respective households, no? And the community. Be active members of your safety and health committees. Inside your homes, practice fire safety, electrical safety, chemical safety, and other applicable na programs. I think halos lahat naman po applicable sa bahay. Make OSH your way of life. Okay? Muli po, magandang umaga. Maraming salamat sa inyong pagsali, pagdalo sa webinar na to. Mabuhay po kayong lahat. Mabuhay po kayong mga OS champion. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you po, Sir Bong. Para sa lahat po, please rename your Zoom display name to this format: agency or your organization, then name of participants. For example, Dole Juan de la Cruz. Next, your microphone will be muted by default. There will be an allotted time for Q&A. Clarifications and questions will be entertained during the open forum. Please send your question via Zoom chat box. For those watching via Facebook Live, type your question via the comment section. Certificates and a copy of presentation will be sent via email to those who will accomplish the evaluation form at the end of the session. This will also serve as your attendance. Frequently asked question on OSH webinar. Number 1, is the webinar free? Yes po, libre po ang ating webinar. Number 2, meron po bang electronic certificate? Opo, merong electronic certificate na ibibigay sa mga makaka-accomplish ng evaluation form pagkatapos ng webinar. Para po sa mga nanonood sa Facebook Live, hindi na po natin kailangang i-send ang ating mga email address or ating mga full name sa comment section. I-leave na lang po natin yon para sa mga question and answer or pwedeng reaction po. Thank you po. Next, number 3. Maaari pa rin po ba kaming makasali sa webinar kahit sarado na ang Zoom registration? Dahil sa limitadong kapasidad sa Zoom, limitado lang din ang maaaring makapasok sa Zoom meeting. Ang mga hindi makakapasok ay maaari pa din manood sa aming Facebook Live. Ang aming official Facebook po ay Occupational Safety and Health Center. Number 4. Pwede po bang sumali ang mga walang trabaho? Opo, maaaring sumali ang lahat sa webinar. Number 5. I am watching via Facebook Live. Can I still receive a certificate? Yes, whether you are attending via Zoom or watching via Facebook Live, you can still receive a certificate as long as you accomplish the evaluation form at the end of the session. Again po, no need to send or i-comment sa Facebook Live natin ang mga email address natin or mga full name natin. Dahil po, may evaluation po pagkatapos ng ating webinar. Number 6, is there a deadline for the submission of the evaluation form? Again, yes po, the deadline is only 2 p.m. the day of the webinar. Hanggang 2 p.m. lang po tayo. So pagka labas po ng link or QR code, magsagot na po tayo sa ating evaluation form. Number 7, will I be given a copy of presentation? Yes, the copy of the presentation will be sent together with the certificate. Again po, pag natapos natin yung evaluation form, sabay po natin marireceive yung ating certificate and presentation. Note po sa mga nagpa-follow up ng kanilang mga certificates from the previous webinars, continuous pa rin po yung sending namin. Pahantay na lang po kung nabagalan po tayo. Okay? And now, we have Engineer Roxanne Rojas, President and Founder of Premier PC Metrology. Sir?
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be part of the webinar of OSH. Together with me is my team, our our quality manager, Sheila De La Cruz, and of course, the head of our Metrology Academy, Gretel Dueños, and also our laboratory head. Let me share my screen on this, and I hope I will be able to impart the knowledge in terms of metrology calibration. The discussion that we're going to have for now will be based on the requirements for calibration. After this, Sheila will be discussing the technical requirements in terms of ISO 17025 for calibration. And of course, very important for us to determine the requirements in terms of the calibration certificate. Gretel will be discussing about the requirements for the calibration reports that is also based on ISO 17025. Let me start to share the screen for you. Okay. Okay, good morning, everybody. Good morning, everyone. It is indeed a privilege for Premier Physics Metrology and, of course, Metrology Concept Solutions to be part of the webinar being given by OSH. And, of course, we're going to discuss the requirements in terms of metrology calibration. And later, we'll be discussing about the interpretation of a calibration certificate. To start with, I'll be giving the discussion based on what we call as the golden circle. So why are we supposed to be doing the calibration, and how do we do the calibration for that? And of course, what are the things that we're doing in terms of metrology calibration? I'll show you a video on what is metrology. I strongly believe that if you talk about metrology and calibration, not everybody is too familiar with the requirements for this, and even with the word of metrology. So the following video that I'm going to share with you, I'm going to provide that. This is a credit to the owner of this. I just have to share it, the video that they have for in terms of metrology.
What is metrology? It is the science of measurement. Without it, our lives would be quite different. Everything from smartphones to medications depend on metrology. Metrology began centuries ago when commerce started. Customers had to have a way to know what they were paying for. Whether it was a bag of flour or a length of cloth, you had to have a way to measure it. Today, metrology involves much more. It is used in almost everything in our daily lives. With the latest advancements of technology, there has been an upsurge in the science of metrology. Look at an iPad, a device that we take for granted. But when you look inside, you can begin to understand what a large part metrology played in its design and function. From its sophisticated electronics to the glass touch screen, measurements were critical in the iPad's form and reliability. The iPad is just one example of everything we do. From filling our car's gas tank, buying a pair of jeans, or watching a movie at the theater, metrology has something to do with it. With advancements in metrology comes the need for people to work in the field. Every industry depends on metrology for the quality of their work. In fact, some industries devote up to 15% of their cost of a product or service to metrology. Metrology could be an excellent career choice. Whatever your interests, there are always opportunities in the field of metrology. Not just a good starting position, but room for advancement and added responsibilities. What interests you? Take the time to check out some of the careers in the science of metrology and see where it can lead you.
All right. So if you're going to look at metrology, how did I start my career in terms of metrology and calibration? I used to work with the National Metrology Laboratory in the Philippines that is under the umbrella of the Department of Science and Technology. I stayed there for almost a decade, 9 years, 10 months, 22 days, and a few hours to be more exact on this. And of course, in terms of my educational background, if you're going to be a metrologist, then what will be needed then? Well, basically, in my case, I am a mechanical engineer by profession. I am from Cotabato City, to be more exact on this, and then I had this one. I took my master's at De La Salle University. I worked with metrology for this. My thesis was about calibration, also design and evaluation of the calibration station for liquid types of flow meters. So we use this one for the calibration of flow meters. And of course, I'm also a Think Busan licensed instructor in terms of mind mapping. And of course, I'm a master practitioner in terms of neuro-linguistic programming. Well, basically, these are the things that kept me busy before. And of course, if you're going to look at my career, then this is mind mapping by Tony Busan. If you are looking into ways to improve how you take down notes, decision making with your SWOT analysis or PESEL, these are the opportunities for you to be able to get the better results for that. Okay. And of course, my work career, I spent many years at the National Metrology Laboratory of the Philippines. Been busy with other things also in terms of process requirements, and I'm also working with as an auditor for PAB. Now let's talk about calibration. If you're going to look at calibration, calibration is not really a very known topic for everybody. Sometimes when you say calibration, my friends will be telling, what is calibration, by the way? It's something that when you go metrology is the science of measurement. If you're going to look at calibration, it is a set of, so if you're going to look at the definition that we have here, calibration is always comparison between a standard and a measurand. Now, if you're going to look at the picture that we have here, if you are using a weighing scale, the question will always be, how sure are you that the measurements results that you have there, they are all reliable? Of course, if you're going to look at a measuring instrument, then you will say that, okay, let me check about the calibration of this measuring instrument and see whether I am getting the correct results. But if you're going to look at calibration for this, of course, we always compare the measurand, in this case, the weighing scale, with the standard. The standard is the standard masses that you are using. So you compare the standard mass against your weighing scale under specified conditions of measurement. And that is what we call as the calibration. Now, if you're going to look at this, when you say under specified conditions of measurement, what do we mean by this one? So we make use of a measuring instrument, which we call a thermohygrometer. So we say, you look at this one, whenever you measure, you make use of a thermohygrometer. A thermohygrometer is a measuring instrument that measures temperature and relative humidity. Okay, if you're going to look at this one, ano ba yung relative humidity? Relative humidity is the amount of moisture in air. I hope I can discuss further on the requirements of this, because when I audit companies based on metrology calibration, I usually ask them, why are you using thermohygrometers? Some people will be telling me, kasi po a requirement. Now the question is, why is it a requirement? Okay, because we have to satisfy the conditions on this. Like for example, if you are using a weighing scale, now if you're going to place the sample that you have there, whether this is a raw material or probably a standard mass that you're using, then now if you're going to place that one on the load receptacle, so the question will be, how sure are we that this is the correct result? Then when we are in doubt, let's take another reading. So we take another reading. So second one, let's say the first one will be 10.1 milligram. Now the question will be, how sure are we that this is really 10.1 milligram? Take note, I'm using the word milligram, not milligrams. Okay, so we don't place S there. Now, difference. Because whenever you measure, there are many parameters that we cannot control. And part of this will be temperature and relative humidity. So we have to consider always that there will be parameters that will have an effect in our measurement. So let's take a third reading. What if the third reading will be 10.0? So which one is correct now? 10.0, 10.1, or 10.2? We don't know. Okay. So in that case, you just have to take the mean or the average for that and make sure that we are getting the correct parameters also, environmental conditions. Kaya pag tinatanong natin during all this, why are you using thermohygrometers? Because we would like to see the effect of these parameters, temperature and RH, on our measurement results. It's not because it's an audit requirement. It's not because it is written in the procedure, because we need to have those things, because this one will have an effect on our measurement results. In terms of mass, of course, it will have an effect on our measured mass because of the what we call as the air buoyancy. All right. I would like to discuss this one further, but maybe next discussion going to have this one. Now, I would like to share with you what we're doing in our case, in our lab at Premier Physics for this. Why do we have speed, safety, and security? Now, when we are doing the calibration, especially year 2020 and 2021, we need to make things faster in terms of the requirements. We have to be more safe. Dapat hindi yung close contact natin, di ba? At the same time, security of data. So we'd like to share it with you that what we're currently doing is, aside from using this thermohygrometer that we have here, there's no, it's okay if we're going to make use of this, but if we like to do something faster, then we can make use of technology. We can make do something like this, okay? So in this case, we monitor the temperature and RH in our lab by using data loggers already, okay? So there are many data loggers in the market that you can make use of to get the temperature and RH of your laboratory, okay? So this can be cloud-based. You can choose many brands that you have there in the market. Okay, this is an example that we are using now. Now, question is, if you have measuring instruments, are you supposed to have it calibrated or not? Like for example, sa bahay ninyo, ano ba pala isa palagay niyo mga measuring instruments na meron tayo? Sinasabi natin, you would like to have to drink coffee, water, juice. Okay, so in that case, that is already part of our lives. Measurement is always part of our life. Now, the question will be, if you have measuring instruments, the question will always be, are we supposed to have those things calibrated or not? Now, if we're going to look at this, we need to check if we are getting the accurate results. But if in this case, if we're going to look at this girl, are we supposed to have this numbers calibrated? But if you are working for an organization that measures the growth of children, which is supposed to be directly proportional to whatever parameters that they have there, the measuring instrument that you're supposed to be using shall be calibrated. Now, I'll give examples on why are we supposed to be doing the calibration. A good example for this is this one. A food manufacturing process uses a calibrated oven and temperature controller. After several months, the controller was found to be, quote unquote, miscalibrated. So what do we mean by this one? So after using the oven, okay, now they found out that it is miscalibrated, meaning there will be a deviation from the nominal value. Now, whenever you do the calibration, whenever we perform calibration, the question will always be, how sure are you that in between the calibration interval, we are still getting the correct numbers? Okay, this is a common question that I ask, that auditors also ask when they have to look at measuring instruments. Imagine if you have a measuring instrument there, whether it's a weighing calibration certificate for this, which will be discussed by Greta later, and then you also have to look at the parameters that will have an effect on the calibration. Now, let's say the oven that you have there was calibrated last January. Now it's already July. It's a process wherein you check or you verify whether the measuring instrument complies with the specification being given by the manufacturer, the end user, or by a certain standard. Now, if you're going to look at this, if you have an oven, now after some time you found out it is miscalibrated or the deviation is already too large from the nominal value. Okay, so you have to check on those things. Another one, a manufacturer of food products published nutrition facts in their labels. However, a diet enthusiast group published an independent evaluation indicating it to be less for a sample unit. Okay, so it turned out that they were using a poorly calibrated measurements and were out of tolerance. Okay, so you have to see and check the numbers that you have there. And this may be because of the measuring instruments that you are using. So that is the reason why we need to have it calibrated. Now, if you are travel, the economy is now starting to reopen. So we'd like to travel, right? Now, have you ever thought of something like this? Captain, looks like someone forgot to calibrate the altimeter. There are many cases that you're going to see that when you are inside the aircraft, the captain will tell you, okay, we are cruising at an altitude of 35,000 feet. If you're going to look at this one, 35,000 feet, how sure are we that it is really 35,000 feet, right? Now, during the altitude of approach, a chance that you're going to have this, right? Hopefully not. Okay, what about in terms of your working environments then? Are you familiar with the portable gas monitor, or probably multiple gas monitors on this one? So you measure the LEL, H2S, CO, CO2, O2, or even ammonia. So these are supposed to be calibrated. We have to make it a point that this will provide us good numbers, right? If you're familiar with an infrared thermometer or non-contact thermometer, so these are supposed to be calibrated also. Both continuous growth. So these are supposed to be calibrated. Okay, I just have to run this one fast. Of course, calibration of flow meters, a small deviation can cost million pesos loss per year. Imagine if you're going to have there. Okay. So we can work with confidence, measure with confidence if our measuring instruments are. And one of the most important reasons why we have to have it calibrated because of the traceability. Later, we'll discuss about what is calibrated. So, sino nag-calibrate doon? Ano ginamit niyang pang-calibrate? Let's say you have a test weight. Now, if you're going to look at this one, if you have a test weight, the question is, if it is calibrated, sino naman na nag-calibrate ng test weight na yon? Of course, now let's say it's being calibrated by PPM. Now, the question is, if it's being calibrated by PPM, sino naman nag-calibrate ng standards ng PPM? So you look at the traceability. So let's say it's calibrated by the National Metrology Laboratory. Now, if it's being calibrated by NML, the question will be, sino naman nag-calibrate na magamit ng NML? It is an unbroken chain of comparisons with known uncertainty. Please take note that if you're going to look at traceability of your measuring instrument, it is an unbroken chain of comparisons with known uncertainty. So we have to make it a point that it is with measurement uncertainty. Later, Gretel will discuss part of those things when you have to look at a calibration certificate. And of course, Sheila will also discuss about that one. And of course, we need to comply with our international standards. If you're going to look at calibration, what are the international standards that we're looking at? Let's say ISO 17025. Or probably ISO 17020. So we look at the requirements and then whether we are able to meet the international standards, even for guidance documents or probably reference documents that you are using them. So we have to make it a point that we are traceable, we have measurement uncertainty, and we comply with the requirements of the international standards. Okay, so of course this one will also prevent the mishaps. Okay. If you're going to look at your tires are safely attached to your vehicle. So what will tell us about those things? Of course, the calibration. Okay. I guess very common for us will be temperature calibration, especially during ECQs last 2020 and 2021. So whenever you have to take the temperature, the question will always be, how sure are we that the temperature that we're getting is correct? Let's say if it's 37.8 and higher, then they will tell us that you already have fever. Some documents will tell us about 36.5 before you can say that you are well or not. Okay. So supposed to be, last year I was asking people like, measuring devices deteriorate over time. Habang ginagamit mo yung mga measuring instrument natin, of course, it will deteriorate over time. So we have to make it a point that we have to have it recalibrated, calibrated, and recalibrated. So in that case, then, we will be able to see the correct numbers that we have on those things then. Okay? So, ang ibang ginagawa nila, let me share this experience that I have then. Other people will or opted to buy new measuring instruments. Sabi nila, magbili lang tayo ng bago instead of having it calibrated. Now, if you're going to look at this one, bakit, ano yung dapat na ginagawa natin? Whenever you buy a measuring instrument, there is no assurance that it will provide you with 100% accurate results. Now, that is the reason why whenever you have to buy measuring instrument, you have to make it a point that these are also calibrated. There is no assurance that a new measuring instrument will give you the full confidence that you are relying on your measuring instrument. So you have to make it a point that it is calibrated. Okay? And once it is calibrated, dapat meron kasamang calibration certificate. At the same time, yung ating calibration certificate shall comply with the requirements of ISO 17025. Okay, so we have to ensure accuracy and credibility of our measuring instruments then. Okay, in Premier Physics Metrology, I would like to share it with you that we're doing the calibration for more than 2 decades already. And of course, we would like to be first of many. And in terms of the requirements for gas detectors, density meters, lag, spectrophotometers, I strongly believe that we are the first and only for now to be accredited for 17025. So we have more than 100 accredited scopes for calibration and capability of almost 200 parameters there. Okay, so we are doing the calibration. So in this case, we can calibrate up to -200 degrees Celsius and even for torque 2000 foot-pound. And these are all part of our accreditation for 17025. So that is what we are doing with Premier Physics Metrology, right? Now, question will always be, if you're going to have things calibrated, then why do we have it calibrated? Now, if you're going to look at calibration that I mentioned a while ago, okay, question will always be, why do we have to have our measuring instrument calibrated, especially if you are in a facility, let's say you are in a manufacturing facility, or probably even if you are at home or other things that that keeps you busy then. Now, if you're going to look at calibration, of course, if your measuring instruments are calibration, of course, you will be increasing the capability of whatever you do there in terms of your manufacturing, in terms of many quality requirements. Capability will be part of the things that go part of your growth then. Of course, if your measuring instruments are calibrated, of course, you will provide credible measuring results then. So it will enhance the credibility of your measurement results. And of course, calibration is a requirement for your compliance. If you're going to look at this one for ISO requirement, most probably for halal requirements. So these are all a requirement for your compliance. Now, of course, if you're going to have your measuring instrument calibrated, of course, in terms of the requirements, in terms of your competition, of course, you will have the competitive advantage compared with those measuring instruments that are not, for those companies wherein the measuring instruments are not calibrated. Okay? And of course, this will be a good opportunity for you to be able to do a close collaboration with other organizations for you to be able to provide not competition, but co-opetition with them. So in this case, the business continuity will be ensured first in terms of sustainability, and we can have an assurance that whatever we do, this will be part of our success. And of course, in our business, in whatever we do, that will be part of our sustainability. And of course, part of our skills transformation. And for business owners, this will be a good opportunity for be part of your succession planning. Okay. Before I proceed with my slides, laboratory practice. So we say GXP, in our case here is laboratory. In your case, it could be laboratory or probably it could be manufacturing. So let me share some slides on this one. So in terms of good laboratory practice, when you say good laboratory practice, what is the importance of having the calibration? So good laboratory practice and standard operating procedures provide guidelines for proper operation of equipment, maintenance and sanitation, reporting structures, and other related activities then. Now, as part of the good laboratory practice that we have, so calibration will ensure us the results that we are having, it will be of higher credibility in terms of consistency and reliability, or the parameters that you measure, especially if you're doing WEM, of course, you can work with confidence whenever you see that you're measuring. Of course, we can apply solutions for those things. Now, during the pandemic, what is the importance of having the calibration? So when you're going to look at those things, then when things are really very uncertain for us, let's say way back 2020 and 2021, we are not sure of whatever things will happen in the future then, especially if you're going to look at COVID. Now, if you're going to look at calibration, ano ba nagawa ng importance ng calibration then? If you're going to look at the vaccines that you have there, the requirements for the vaccines is either 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. You will be getting the vaccine at the same time, the measuring instruments to monitor if the vaccines are kept at a specified temperature. If these are not calibrated, how sure are you that the vaccines will be effective? Okay, even for the storage area. So in this case, keeping vaccine at the required temperature is really a very big challenge for the cold chain. Now imagine if you're going to make sure that a very, very big cold storage is kept at, let's say, 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. Now, question will always be, the challenge in terms of the requirements for the air conditioning system will be one. Of course, in checking the sustainability of this will be another thing. And the best part for this in terms of the quality requirements, so you have to look at whether this is calibrated or not. This was a challenge that we had, especially during the years of 2020 and 2021, wherein the close proximity in terms of the measurement is really a challenge for them. Even during transport, so if you have reefer bands from the manufacturer going to the cold chain going to the LGU going to you, then that is already a challenge then. So that is the importance of having the calibration. Okay. So calibration will provide peace of mind from the first mile to the last mile. Even for safety, if you have boilers, so prevent future disaster to happen. Okay, so we have to make it a point that calibration is being done. Now, let me share my thoughts on this. Sometimes there will be a confusion about calibration and inspection. So if you're going to look at this, a calibration is a comparison between a standard and a measurand. Let's say if you have a temperature controlled enclosure, let's say it is an oven, you can have it calibrated. But additional way of checking whether we are complying with the requirements is we need to provide a thermal mapping. So ito yung lagi pinag-uusapan. Ang calibration is checking it's a comparison between a standard and a measurand. Well, thermal mapping is we do the inspection. So in this case, if you have cold storage like this, so this is supposed to be thermal mapping. Kasi may mga questions kasi sa amin before. Pwede ba i-calibrate yung aming warehouse? Pwede ba i-calibrate yung aming, let's say, malaking walk-in chiller? Yes, we can do the calibration if you're going to do a comparison between the measuring instrument. If you have their gauges that monitors the temperature and RH. But if you're going to look at the requirements for the whole area, so what we do is not the calibration of the warehouse, but we do the inspection of the warehouse. So in that case, we provide what we do is thermal mapping. So in that case, these are the things that we thermal map. We do the freezers, refrigerators, incubators, cold rooms, autoclaves. This is what we call as a temperature-controlled enclosures. So boilers and pressure vessels, they are not calibrated. They're also inspected. Pero pag meron kayong mga measuring instrument doon sa boilers, ang kinakalibrate natin, yung mga measuring instruments which are already attached with the pressure vessel. Okay? Because it's something that is part of the medyo confusing sa industriya, no? Kung ano ba talaga yung gagawin, especially if you you look at this sa load testing. Okay? Just have to run this one fast. Okay, so importance of having maximize your product shelf life. Of course, you do thermal mapping. Okay. Are you safe at your workplace? Okay, so you determine the level of hazards present in work environment. And how you do those things, of course, you have several tools for that. And part of this would be the measuring instruments, and these measuring instruments are supposed to be calibrated. Okay. Now, if you're working with, let's say, with biosafety cabinets, so the measuring instruments that you have there are calibrated, but the biosafety cabinet is inspected. So we call it inspection of biosafety cabinets. Okay. So these are the things that we are looking at in terms of the calibration requirements. And of course, as I mentioned a while ago, we talk about traceability. Now, before I discuss this, I would like to ask Sheila to discuss about the requirements for the technical requirements in terms of the calibration. Marami kasing nagsasabi na, well, we do the calibration, but for what requirement are we doing those things? So in our case, we look at the technical requirements based on the ISO 17025. So if you're going to look at calibration, calibration is supposed to be done based on the requirements of ISO 17025. It is the guidelines for the general requirements for a testing and calibration laboratory. So dito tayo nag-base ng ating requirements for that. So maybe we can also answer those things then.
Thank you, Sir Rox. So I'll just share my screen po for the presentation. Sheila Avellano po. I'm the Quality Manager of Premier Physics Metrology. So I'm here to give an introduction for the ISO 17025 2017 version. So this is one of the standards of the International Organization for Standardization. So ISO IEC 17025 2017 version is the general requirements for the competence of testing and calibration laboratories. Ito po yung ginagamit ng mga calibration and testing laboratories to perform and to operate competently and can provide valid results. So as one of the accredited ISO 17025 accredited laboratory, kami po ay ina-assess at ine-evaluate regularly to guarantee ang aming continued technical competence and compliance. So, continued po yung aming evaluation. So, si Philippine Accreditation Bureau yung nag-a-assess sa amin for the competency. The question is, why measurements are supposed to be calibrated by an ISO IEC 17025 accredited laboratory? Isa po yan sa mga topic kanina ni Sir Rox. So first, it increases yung ating confidence ng mga personnel. Kapag po accredited ang isang laboratory, yung competent ng personnel or ng mga nagpo-conduct ng calibration or testing is evident. Ibig sabihin na-evaluate yung competency ng each personnel. So we participated sa mga proficiency testing, interlaboratory comparisons, or measurement audits. Second, it eliminates recalibration. Madalas po yan problema ng mga end users. Nagpapa-recalibrate kasi hindi nila alam kung yung equipment ba nila is acceptable pa, reliable pa. So pangatlo po, the certificate being issued is accepted globally. Ibig sabihin, valid yung mga results na ini-issue na pinoprovide ng isang accredited calibration laboratory. Of course, yung mga customer natin, nandyan yung confidence nila and satisfaction. Pag sinabing ISO accredited ang isang laboratory, ma-provide nila na ma-assess nila yung mga laboratory na okay, acceptable yung kanilang traceability, yung kanilang mga equipment na ginagamit for conducting calibration. Of course, it improved the laboratory effectiveness and data quality, which is made more reliable by the establishment of traceability and measurement uncertainty. And last, the calibration by an ISO IC 17025 accredited lab helps you minimize risk. Yan. Sa lahat po ng standards natin, naka-major na po yung ating risk assessment. Hindi po ba? May mga risk tayo na ine-evaluate. So para ma-eliminate yung mga risk na yon in terms of the calibration of your equipment, you need to ensure na yung mga equipment nyo is calibrated ng isang accredited laboratory. So I'll just show po yung aming ISO IC 17025 Accreditation Certificate. This is provided by the Philippine Accreditation Bureau under the DTI. So sabi nga po ni Sir Rox kanina, we have more than 120 accredited scopes. So next, i-discuss ko po yung ano po ba yung mga technical requirements pagdating sa 17025. Of course, pinag-uusapan kanina yung equipment and traceability. So sinasabi ni 17025 that the laboratory shall be furnished with all the necessary equipment required for the correct performance of calibration or test. So i-identify po natin kung ano ba yung mga specific requirements pagdating sa equipment. Okay, first, ang sabi, equipment in its software used for testing, calibration, and sampling shall be capable of achieving the accuracy required. So you need to set a specification for tolerances for your equipment to identify if it's still reliable to use or give accurate results. So next, ayan, sabi po, equipment shall be calibrated or checked to establish that it meets the laboratory's specific requirements. Sabi nila kapag bago mo siya gamitin, dapat calibrated. Na-ensure mo na within reliable yung inyong equipment na gagamitin. So isa po yun sa mga requirement ni ISO 17025. So, paano mo po ba malalaman na calibrated yung equipment? Of course, you need to have the calibration sticker and also the calibration certificate that will be discussed by Ms. Gretel later. Next, kailangan daw dapat yung mga equipment natin, only authorized personnel yung gagamit. Kasi may mga risk po dyan na kaakibat. So, possible kung hindi authorized yung personnel, baka masira niya yung gamit or baka ma-aksidente siya dahil sa paggamit ng equipment. So, that's one of the requirements din po ni 17025. So, nare-require din po ni 17025 na kailangan may specific procedure tayo na available kung paano gamit. So each item of equipment and its software used for testing or calibration shall be uniquely identified. Aside from the serial number na meron po tayo sa mga equipment na ginagamit natin, napaka-hassle po sa part natin, required ni ISO 17025 na dapat meron tayong mga uniquely identification para sa ating mga equipment. So we need to establish a calibration program for our equipment. Ayan na po yung sinasabi kanina ni Sir Roxanne. Dapat calibrated yung mga or pwede din quarterly. So for the Premier Physics Metrology, sa amin po, our recommended recalibration for the equipment is 1 year. So, ayun po yung nagiging basis natin for the recalibration program ng ating mga equipment. So, meron din po tayong mga intermediate checks. Kapag ka po meron tayong fina-follow na intermediate checks, kailangan meron tayong fina-follow na procedure on how to conduct the immediate checks or in the intermediate checks. So, meron din po tayong mga verification procedure. Ayan, nabanggit kanina ni Sir Roxanne sa presentation niya. Ito pong verification is to check kung reliable pa po yung ating gamit in between the calibration interval ng ating mga equipment. So for example, ang calibration natin is every year. So paano mo malalaman after 3 months na ginagamit mo yung equipment, reliable pa siya? So you need to perform verification. So next, we need also to include on how we are going to apply the correction of the equipment in the procedure. So, dyan po papasok later on yung ating calibration certificate. Isa po yan sa mga requirement. So next, ayan, yung mga defective equipment natin, kailangan meron din po tayong procedure on how to isolate yung ating mga defective equipment para hindi na siya magamit. So, chine-check din po yan, nire-required ng ating standard ISO 17025. So, kailangan din po naka-include sa ating procedure yung safe handling, paano natin tinatransport kapag i-out sa ating laboratory, yung storage, paano natin ini-store yung ating mga equipment. Appropriate checks made on-site. Ayan, pag ginagamit po natin on-site, outside the So, yung part po ng ating on-site calibration, kailangan meron tayong list of all transported equipment. From the in-house calibration, we do the on-site calibration. Ibig sabihin po, pupunta kami sa planta, sa laboratory. So, I think this is the last slide for my presentation. So, siguro po yung mga questions later na lang po after the presentation. So, I'll back the floor po kay Sir Roxanne.
Hi, good morning. Well, thank you, Sheila, for the discussion that Gretel will discuss about the requirements for the calibration report, and this is based on the requirements of ISO IEC 17025. Gretel will provide
So, good morning, everyone. Do you see my screen?
Yes po, ma'am. Yes po.
Okay, to start with, so we are about to discuss the interpretation of the calibration certificate. So, I am Gretel Dueños, Laboratory Head for Premier Physics Metrology and Technical Instructor for Metrology Academy. So, test reports and calibration certificates. So, this is certificates based on the general requirements for the competence, impartiality, and consistent operation of laboratories. So each test report or calibration certificate shall include at least the following information unless the laboratory has valid reasons for not doing so. So first one is the title. So on our actual certificate, ang naka-indicate lang ay simply Calibration Certificate. So why title is important? So title is the first thing we'll see on a document. So dito tayo magkakaroon ng idea kung ano ang nilalaman ng isang document. And next naman is yung name and address of the laboratory and location where the calibrations were carried out. So name and address of the laboratory. So if we calibrated this specific sample on our Mandaluyong office, so obviously yung address ng Mandaluyong office ang ilalagay natin sa ating certificate. So third is the unique identification of the address of the client. So simple information of the customer. We indicate their name, office, or laboratory address on the calibration certificate. And if meron silang end user and they have special remarks about it, we can also indicate yun yung method na sinasabi dito. So next is yung description, condition, or identification of the measurand. So this is simply the specification of the measurand. So later we will discuss it further. So next is date of the receipt of the measurand. So date kung kailan pumasok or na-receive ng ating laboratory ang ating measurand. So next is yung reference to the sampling plan and procedures used by the laboratory or other bodies where these are relevant to the validity or application of the result. So we have this calibration procedure na approved ng Philippine Accreditation Bureau. And next is test or calibration results. So this is one of the most important part ng ating certificate. So this is where we see the true value of the calibration. And of course, we need to indicate the unit of the measurement. So next is names, functions, and signatures or equivalent identification of persons authorizing the calibration certificate. So sa latter part ng ating certificate, makikita natin dun yung name ng approved signatory. So they are the authorized personnel na allowed mag-sign ng ating calibration certificate. So where relevant, a statement to the effect that the results relate only to the items tested or calibrated. So for this part, this is usually seen at the remarks. Sorry for interpreting results. So eventually, this is more on the customer side. So these are the key points we need to consider. So first is the conditions such as environmental conditions under which the calibrations were made. So we need to indicate the temperature, the RH or yung relative humidity and atmospheric pressure during the calibration. And next is yung uncertainty of measurement and statement of compliance with an identified metrological specification or clauses. So declaration of uncertainty. So under this, yung base ISO GUM or yung guide to the uncertainty of measurement. So evidence that the measurements are traceable. And next is yung the calibration report itself. So ito yung example ng calibration certificate ng Premier Physics Metrology. 2017 PUB accreditation logo. So it is the international standard for quality systems in testing and calibration laboratories. So simply, they are the ones na nagsicertify if we can perform or capable ba tayo sa calibration or not. So next is yung customer and end user. So company name and address of the customer and end user. So next is yung measurement details. So ito yung sinasabi natin specifications. So dito natin makikita sa measurement details yung type, resolution, range, model, brand, serial number, and equipment ID kung meron man. Tapos date received for in-house calibration. And if we perform naman the calibration on-site, we also indicate the area and location of the instrument being calibrated. So procedure used in calibration. So ito yung procedure na accredited tayo ng PUB in accordance to ISO 17025. So, on our example here, so yung procedure na ginamit natin is yung PPM Cal 350 or yung calibration of gas measuring instruments. So, ini-indicate din natin siya dun sa ating COC. And then the measure and mean reading. So the average reading of the instrument being calibrated per test point. And it is the measure and reading or yung unit under test. So kapag makikita natin siya sa certificate, ito ay naka-average na as well as the standard mean reading. So average reading of the instrument used by the calibration laboratory. So next, correction. So in calibration, we define correction as the amount needed to adjust a measurement back to its nominal. So meaning it's the value added algebraically. So means you add or you subtract. So to simplify the correction, it is the difference of the standard mean reading and the measured mean reading. So environmental conditions. So the laboratory shall monitor, control, and record environmental conditions as required by the relevant specifications, methods, and procedures, or where they influence the quality of the results. So this is based on the ISO pa din. So environmental condition is the identical conditions that involves the parameter of temperature, relative humidity, and if needed, yung HPA or yung atmospheric pressure. Next, standards and traceability. So, pag sinabi nating standard, standard which is yung gamit na pinang-calibrate natin dun sa measurand. So, instrument used in calibration of the measurand. And when we say traceability, ito yung reference document kung saan natin ipinakalibrate yung standard natin na ginamit sa measurand. So usually it is national or international references. So for example, dito sa certificate natin, yung ginamit natin na standard is gas mixtures of methane, oxygen, hydrogen sulfide, carbon monoxide with nitrogen balance with company identification number of PPMGS 008. So, saan ba traceable or saan kinalibrate yung standard na ginamit namin pang-calibrate? So, yung standard namin is traceable sa National Physical Laboratory, United Kingdom, through Calgas International, through True North Metrology System. So next is yung uncertainty. So in metrology, we define uncertainty as a non-negative parameter characterizing the dispersion of values that could reasonably be attributed to the measure. So how about confidence level and coverage factor? So pag sinabi natin coverage factor, so yung formula niya is combined uncertainty multiplied by the K factor is equals to expanded uncertainty. So, before kasi, hindi natin kino-compute ang K-factor. So, yung level of confidence with a coverage factor of K is always equals to 2. But that was when we are in ISO 17025, 2005. But now we are in ISO 17025, 2017. So, kino-compute na natin ang coverage factor using the Well-Shatterwa equation. So, yan, Well-Shatterwa equation. So, yung Well-Shatterwa equation is equation used in statistics and uncertainty analysis. So, we consider the individual uncertainty of the standard and uncertainty of the graduation and resolution. So, ito po yung formula na ginagamit namin na pag-identify ng uncertainty. And then next, kapag nakuha na natin yung coverage factor, so titingnan na natin siya sa table of coverage factors or yung tinatawag namin na T-distribution table. At doon tayo magbe-base ng ating level of confidence. So next is yung name and signature of the approved signatory. So simply they are the ones na authorized na mag-sign sa ating calibration certificate. So usually ang pumipirma sa mga calibration certificate natin ay quality manager, technical managers, and laboratory heads. So for the control number, so ito yung control number na binibigay namin sa mga clients namin and ini-indicate din namin to sa calibration certificate. So kung yung mapapansin nyo, yung first 4 numbers ng control number namin is yung month and year ng calibration. And then yung next 3 letters ay special record siya if siya are located or calibrated sa North Luzon. And if it's located naman sa South, it is Met yung nilalagay namin. So, meron din kaming mga marquee account. So, meron din kaming mga special codes sa kanya. And yung last 5 digits naman is since system operated kami, so series generated lang siya. So, unique number assigned to the instrument being calibrated for monitoring purposes. And for the last part naman is yung date of calibration. So, syempre, kailangan natin ilagay kung kailan natin nakalibrate yung ating measurand. So, usually sa pinakababa siya nakikita ng certificate. And for the importance naman ng calibration certificate, so we need calibration certificate not just to comply for requirements. So, hindi tayo nagpapakalibrate dahil lang requirements natin sa audit. Kasi usually, pag may nagpapakalibrate sa amin, tinatanong namin, bakit kayo nagpapakalibrate? So, ang sinasagot nila is, ay, kailangan lang po namin sa audit or for compliance lang po or para lang may record kami. So, we need to remember na that all measuring instruments need to be calibrated to ensure the reliability of the instrument. So kung reliability po yung pinag-uusapan natin, paano natin malalaman if accurate pa yung binibigay sa result ng device mo if wala kang certificate of calibration? So pinakalibrate mo ba siya or pagkabili mo ng device mo, ginamit mo na siya agad. So this is how calibration works for us. So if sa iba, tingin nila ang calibration ay maliit na bagay lang. So little did they know na it can affect their production, their business, and even their lives. So we suggest to consult your trusted calibration laboratories to attend your calibration needs. So, okay. So since na-discuss na natin yung importance ng calibration certificate, so sana nalaman natin yung importance or kung paano to nakaka-apekto sa business, sa lives natin. So, ganun po natin malalaman kung gaano kahalaga magpa-calibrate. So, that's all for the interpretation of calibration certificate. So, thank you and God bless us all.
Thank you very much, Gretel, for the discussion about the calibration certificate. In as much as we would like to discuss further the requirements of metrology calibration, but due to the limited time given for this discussion, I believe we are already ready to answer the questions that you have here. And I also placed my email address at the chat box in case that you have something in mind that you would like to discuss, not today, but maybe tomorrow or some other days then.
Oh, thank you po sir sa ganong action. Ano sir, gusto niyo po diretso na tayo sa question and answer po?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Sige po. Good morning everyone. Diretso na po tayo sa ating question and answer. Sir Roxanne, question number 1 po from Jason. Meron po ba tayong mga accredited center para sa calibration for thermogun?
Yes, actually, Premier Physics Metrology is accredited to provide the calibration for thermogun, or simply saying infrared thermometers.
Mm.
So we can do the calibration for that, and that is under our scope for ISO 17025 accreditation.
Sige, sir. Another question from Bonnie from FB. Ano po ang magiging liability if, for example, the calibrator certified an inaccurate instrument?
If we're going to, well, basically, if you're going to look at this one, if you're going to certify a measuring instrument, we do the calibration, and we provide the calibration certificate for this together with the sticker that we're going to have then. A calibration service provider shall not, in this case, will tell you whether the measuring instrument is supposed to be acceptable for not. Simply saying, if you're going to look at a measuring instrument, there are many applications for this. In my opinion, it's supposed to be the end user shall determine whether this is appropriate for its purpose or not. Now, you mentioned about when it's going to certify an instrument that is non-compliant or most probably defective, or deviation is really too large. In our case, what we do is we issue a measurement report for that. And then the end user will be the one who will make use of that report for them to be able to see and judge whether the measuring instrument is still for, it's either the measuring instrument is acceptable, if it is for repair, if it's for adjustment, or already for replacement.
Yes po. Next question po. Can a company do in-house calibration and purchase its own calibration machines?
Yes. A company can do an in-house calibration. That's part of Metrology Academy is doing helping companies also set up their own in-house calibration.
Oh.
For you to be able, one thing that is good for having this one, I would recommend, if you intend to have your own in-house calibration, please make sure that you are properly trained to do those things. One of the reasons why we like how you're supposed to be trained with that is that there are cases that an organization will be buying a standard that is too accurate for its purpose. How does it work then? Let's say you have a weighing scale, and this weighing scale is an ordinary accuracy type of weighing scale. There could be cases that you'll be buying a class E2 or class F1 standard masses. So in that case, that will be too accurate for its purpose. And another one is, maybe there could be a possibility that in your case, you will be buying a standard that is not appropriate for its purpose, meaning the weighing scale is more accurate compared with your standard masses. So yes, you can do the calibration, you can do the in-house calibration, but I would still recommend that you will have the proper training for this one to set up your own in-house calibration facility. And I would suggest that this is in accordance with the requirements of ISO IC 17025 also.
Next question po. May we know what is the rule if the results of the third party and internal calibration are contestable?
I'm not really sure on how going to answer that question. When you have, I'm not sure, maybe we can expand on those things now. When you say the result of your in-house calibration, you have a result for that. And then a third party will be doing the calibration. So how going to decide on those things, which one is correct? Let's check on the traceability first. Let's look whether these are all calibrated. I experienced many years ago that they have concerns with the result of an in-house and of course a third-party calibration. The question will always be, are both of them, are the standards you're using, are they traceable? Second, are you using the appropriate standards for this? And you also have to look at the measurement uncertainty that you are using for its purpose then. Hopefully, I can discuss with the one who's asking that question later kung paano ba yung question na yan.
Yes.
Kung ano yung kanyang requirements for that. What I mean is kung ano yung pinaka-concern for that. Or you can shoot me an email. I can answer those things then.
Yes po. So, Sir Wen Celeste, kung narinig ko dyan pa po kayo, yung question nyo po ay pwede pong ma-entertain through email po ni Sir Roxanne. Next question na po
Or
tayo.
you can give us a call the office.
Yes po. Next question po. Meron po bang requirement sa equipment para makalibrate? Pwede po bang ipakalibrate ang mga over-the-counter or generic anemometer? Example is yung nabili po sa mga online shop like Shopee or Lazada. And how much is the calibration of a generic anemometer in terms of price range? Yan po.
I guess Gretel or Sheila, you can also answer the question. Yes, we supposed to be the risk that we are taking of using an instrument that is not calibrated is really we're looking into the gray side for that. Hindi naman mali na bumili ng gamit sa Shopee or Lazada or any source that you have there. Ang importante lang naman dito is that you have to make sure that you're getting the accurate results. And how are we supposed to be ensured of getting the accurate results is to have it calibrated. There could be chances that the calibration is more expensive compared with the one that you're buying. Minsan na experience namin. They are buying thermometers. Where do they bought the thermometer sa bookstore. So pinadala sa amin and have it calibrated, and they were surprised that this is 3 or 4 times more expensive with the cost of the thermometer. So these are the things that we always have to weigh. When we're going to buy a measuring instrument, look first and foremost, you have to look for a reliable source on that. Second, have it calibrated, and we have it calibrated. If it's calibrated, you make it a point that it will have a calibration certificate, and the calibration certificate shall include all the requirements as being discussed by Gretel. In that case, we are assured that the measurement results that we're going to have coming from that measuring instrument is reliable.
Yes po. Next question po tayo. How do we determine that the equipment we are using needs to be calibrated? And how frequently those equipment need to be calibrated? Yes po.
Sheila, you may answer? Or Gretel? All right, I guess they have technical difficulties. All right, now looking into the recalibration interval, I guess the question is about the recalibrator interval, right?
Yes po, yes.
How it to be calibrated. Now, nobody knows best on your measuring instrument but the end user. Okay, a calibration service provider like us will not tell you when are you supposed to have it calibrated. There could be chances that we will tell you that supposed to be dapat calibrated yan every quarter, every month, every 6 months, every year. But nobody knows best on the performance or probably the application of your measuring instrument. In our case, a calibration service provider, what will be our role is to provide the recommendation for you on how often you're going to have it recalibrated. In many cases, we can have it for an annual basis. But there are also companies that will require us to have their measuring instruments calibrated, let's say on every quarter or probably in every 6 months. It will depend on how critical the application of your measuring instruments. If you're going to look at this one also, hindi ibig sabihin na parehong instrument, same model, same manufacturer, same resolution, you're going to have the same recalibration interval in that case. You have to look at the specific application for that. Let's say, I'll give you an example. If you have a thermocouple, this thermocouple is being used to monitor the temperature inside your facility. As for example, ambient conditions. Now, another thermocouple is being used to measure temperature in your process. Let's say extreme conditions, mataas ang temperature, sobrang taas, and bababa, in those cases, Now, if you're going to look at those things, ano yung mas critical na application? Of course, we'll say that the thermocouple, by the way, a thermocouple is a part of a temperature measuring instrument. Okay, it's the wire that you're using then. Baka kasi iba isipin, ano ba yung thermocouple? Now, in that case then, of course, you look at the application ng inyong measuring instrument. So, please take note that the calibration service provider will not provide you the due date. So dapat ang magbibigay na provide ng recommendation will be the calibration service provider. We can only provide the due date for you unless we have a written agreement that we're supposed to place there the due date for your calibration. In that case also, even yung questions like, for example, you go to have questions like, ito bang aking instrument ay pasado, hindi? A calibration service provider will not tell you about those things, okay? Unless we know the maximum permissible error and we have an agreement on whether we will be the one to place the pass or fail for that. Because measuring instruments will have a lot of applications. Even the same brand, same model, of course, the applications will be different then, especially for each type of industry.
Yes po.
Okay, thank you very much.
So, thank you po. For our next question, regarding kung technician po ba na kailangan mag-calibrate ay meron siyang background na education like instrumentation technician or pwede na po ba kung makapag-attend siya ng ganitong training like ISO related on calibration?
Of course, it will be a good thing if you have a technical background, engineering background, probably instrumentation. But that will not limit you for having those things then. Metrology calibration, of course, you always have to look at the knowledge, experience, and skill. So these are the things that you gain over time. A little learning is a dangerous thing. That's one thing. Minsan kasi baka nakapag-attend tayo ng isang training and then we will make use of that training for us to be able to say that I'm competent in doing those things. That is one of the reasons why many years ago when I used to work with the National Metrology Laboratory, we're trying to set the guidance on how we have to supposed to be doing those things then. Supposed to be a set of criteria on we will be saying that this is a metrologist, a calibration service technician. Of course, we were trying to make it a point that we elevate the requirements for ever what we have for those things then. But of course, training is a must. Experience is another thing. Skill over time that you're going to gain, that will be a very good way for us to say that somebody who is doing calibration is competent enough. And that is the reason why I highly recommend that if you're going to look at those things, supposed to be, we have to look at an ISO IC 17225 accredited calibration laboratory, because these people are already audited and checked for the technical competence that they're having. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you po. For another question po, is internal verification of facilities for their other equipment against a master unit that is calibrated acceptable?
Of course, you need to do an internal verification. As I mentioned kanina, what's the difference between a calibration and verification? When you are going to look at a measuring instrument that you have there, the question will always be, after some time of using that one, how sure are you that this measuring instrument is still reliable? So you do a verification. And how do you do the verification? You can do either, you check the measuring instrument that you have there with a master, you call it the master, you call it the reference standard. I would rather say a reference standard. A reference standard is a standard that has the highest metrological quality in a given location or organization. So if you're going to look at those things, I'm not sure on the process you're going to do the verification. It's either you have a reference standard, check it against your working standard, and make use of the working standard to do the verification of all your direct measuring instruments. If you have further questions on this, feel free to send me an email.
Yes.
So we can discuss further on this requirement then.
Yes, sir. We have a question from Transcend Technologies. Unahin ko po muna yung unang question niya. Are new equipment purchased and calibrated overseas also acceptable in the Philippines as long as with traceability like standards Malaysia MS1SO / IEC 17025?
In my opinion, it's supposed to be acceptable, provided you establish traceability for that. At the same time, if it's being done by an ISO 17225 accredited laboratory. In our case as well, the calibration certificate being issued by PPM, this is also acceptable within the Asia Pacific region and nearby places also. Because we were able to establish the traceability for that, and at the same time, we are accredited for that scope to do the calibration of that measuring instrument. Feel free to send me additional information for that so I can help you with those things then.
Yes po. Question number 2, sir, na from the same company. Based on the standard po, is there really term or criteria for non-controlled or equipment that doesn't require calibration?
These are things that we need to establish for that, because yung question kasi kanina, let's say if you have a measuring instrument, are they supposed to be calibrated or not? If this one will have an effect in the quality of requirements of your the product that you have, then it must supposed to be calibrated. But you have to see the requirements based on your process, whether this one will have an effect or not. Simple gauges that will be used, like for example, just to monitor whether there is a product inside the, let's say, a pipeline or not, or that will not affect the quality. In my opinion, there's no need for you to have it calibrated. You can perform the verification for that.
Sige po.
Or you can do things like doing the installation qualification, operational qualification, or performance qualification.
Yes, sir. Yes po. For the last question po ng same company. Sino lang po ang authorized distributor or seller ng mga calibration standards? Is it MIRDC only?
I believe MRDC, they are not selling the standards. They are doing the calibration also. MRDC is part of the Department of Science and Technology, and they perform the calibration of standards and other measuring instruments. I'm not sure now if they do the selling for that, but I believe that they are doing the calibration of the measuring instruments. So let's just check this one further with them if they do those things already. But I strongly believe that they are doing the calibration and provide traceable calibration results of your measuring instruments. They're also an ISO IEC 17225 accredited calibration laboratory.
Yes po. Sige po. Next question. May we know kung ano pong percent deviation na you recommend na faulty at for disposal na po yung instrument?
That's really a very, very good question. If we're going to look at the measuring instrument, we look at the maximum permissible error for that. But you always have to check it against your process tolerance. As I mentioned before, if you have a measuring instrument, there are many applications for that measuring instrument then. Now you have to check whether this is appropriate for its purpose. Now, the percentage correction for your measuring instrument or for the correction factor, these are two different things, a correction factor. You have to check it against your requirement so you can decide whether your measuring instrument is for adjustment, repair, or replacement, or most probably, you can downgrade this one to another application. Like for example, the application for this is for a very critical application. Now, nakita mo malaking deviation. Now, you look at your process requirement and check against those things then. Then you say, I just have to downgrade this to this application rather than disposing a measuring instrument. Sayang. Measuring instruments are expensive, so you have to make it the point that you have your numbers on those things because you must check the maximum permissible error and of course the process requirement. By the way, the maximum permissible error that I mentioned is your tolerance.
Another question po. Ask ko lang po, may mga accredited labs po ba dito na nagpo-produce ng mixture gases based sa standard gas parameters as defined for reference standards? Ginagamit kasi sa online gas analyzers like Daniel Gas Chromatograph.
I had this challenge many years ago when we would like to have the calibration of the portable gas detectors. Even for safety devices sa palisade ng planta. Well, luckily, I was able to get in touch with an organization that helped us with those things and help us to be able to do the calibration of portable gas detectors and also safety devices. In the Philippines, I'm not sure if there is a company or private organization that will provide you a traceable mixture of gases. I tried to contact also big companies producing gases before, but they weren't able to provide one. The most important part of those things, if you are using these gases, they're supposed to be certified reference materials. So in that case, the gases that you are supposed to be using for that, they are traceable. They are tested with results that are based on the requirements of 17025. So meaning, the results of that we given to you, hindi lang yung MSDS. Many years ago kasi pangyayari kasi you just have to provide you with the MSDS then. So now with the gases, I would like to share it with you. I'm happy to share it with you that the gases that we are using, they have a test result. And the test result, you have there the traceability, and you also have the measurement uncertainty. So these are the things that we are trying to to do for us to be able to help elevate the requirements that we're having then. So mas maganda kasi pag yung ating we raise the bar in terms of metrology and calibration ng ating bansa for us to be able to have a competitive advantage also with the neighboring countries. So these are the things that we are trying to do. If you have further questions on this, feel free to send me an email on this one also.
Okay po. Next question po. How can we use the correction in single point calibration to a wide range of measurements?
Single point correction meaning, does it mean that you have several nominal values or several test points, and then you just have one, or probably you just have one single nominal value for that calibration? I'm not really sure on the question whether they are asking about if, like for example, if let's say thermometer, you have several nominal values for that. When I mentioned nominal values, these are the values that are indicated in your measuring instrument. Let's say it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 degrees Celsius. So in that case, these are the nominal values you have. Let's say when you say single point, does it mean that, for example, a range of 0 to 100 degrees Celsius, you just have it calibrated at 50? Now, once it's calibrated at 50, the correction will be based on 50 degrees Celsius only. So there's no, and in my opinion, there's no way for you to apply the correction on that single point for other nominal values, because there could be chances that the deviation from 0 up to the maximum will be hindi siya linear, okay? Or probably if it's linear, we don't know whether this is going up or going down. That's the reason why we do recommend, like for example, for those cases, that we do the multi-point calibration, multiple set points. But it is best practice for us to make it a point kung ano yung ginagamit yung set points, doon tayo magka-calibrate, or probably intervals will be closer on that nominal values then.
Yes po. Next question po. About this instrument used prior to measuring the atmospheric condition before conducting calibration to the measurand, how do we ensure the accuracy of those e.g. temp, RH, ATM, press? How often are these to be calibrated?
Okay, to ensure the accuracy of these measuring instruments, to measure environmental conditions, right? So they are supposed to be calibrated. Environmental conditions, temperature, RH, and atmospheric pressure, that's one. And how often are these calibrated? Of course, we recommend a year for this, but if the requirement is critical, then you shorten the calibration interval. And I would also recommend that you perform verification in between the calibration interval. Whenever you are in doubt with your measuring instruments, meaning like for example, nahulog mo yung instrument mo, or probably if it's a flow meter, nagkaroon ng backflow, or probably weighing scale na overload, then I would recommend that you have it calibrated.
Mhm. Yes po. For the next question, sir. Is there an acceptable number for an equipment whose tested result is 7.1 when the standard number is 7.00? Would that be considered calibrated? In short, is there a positive or negative acceptable result?
I'm not really getting that question well. Is there let's work
Parang is there
7.1.
an positive or negative, sabi niya dito, sir, acceptable result?
There could be a
Or
positive, negative correction for that measurement value that you have there. But I'm sorry, I'm not getting
yes, sir.
the question well.
Siguro
Maybe
ganito.
maybe we can discuss more about the question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir
Is
Mike,
there
Sir Fikes
acceptable-
Manalili.
Yes, Mr. Pikes Manalili, I'm reading the question. Is there an acceptable number for an equipment whose tested result is 7.1 when the standard number is 7.00? Would that be considered calibrated? In short, is there a plus or minus acceptable? Oh, the value that you have there, when you have it there, the standard value that you have there is 7, and your result is 7.1. Anong tawag mo doon sa 0.1? That is what we call as the correction. So the purpose of having it calibrated is for us to be able to see the deviations from the lowest point up to the highest, meaning from the whole span. Now, please take note that calibration does not necessarily mean an adjustment. Okay? Kasi nagkakaroon tayo ng misconception. Pag sinabi natin calibrated, akala natin there will be zero deviation. Halimbawa, thermometer. If you are going to look at a liquid in gas thermometer, when you have it calibrated, people may be thinking na, oh, tama ito result nito from sa mula, so from 10 degrees Celsius, 10 din ito. Pag 20, 20 rin ito. The purpose of looking at the calibration certificate is for you to be able to see the deviation from the nominal value. So in that case, if you say that it's 7 and of 7.1, then you say it's calibrated. Yes, it's calibrated. And you have to apply the correction for that. It is calibrated if it is compared with a standard, okay? And the standard is traceable also. And it's supposed to have a measurement uncertainty. That's one thing.
Yes po. Thank you po. And next question po. How does Dole inspect for non-calibrated equipment, and there is any sanction for non-compliance, and what department are responsible for inspections?
I guess Dolly should be the one to answer the question.
Yeah. Sige sir, let's move na lang po sa next question.
Okay.
In a small microscale laboratory, like in school, when is the best time para po palitan ang mga lumang equipment? May mga luma pa po kasing equipment na maayos and gumagana pa.
Yeah, that's right. Maraming instrument na kahit matagal na maayos pa rin yun. First and foremost, you need to do the preventive maintenance of your measuring instrument. That will help you have the life of the instrument a bit longer then. Second, you need to do the verification for that. Check it against the standard. Next, have it calibrated. Now, from that point, then you can say that if the results of the measurement that you have there is still within your tolerance, then you say that that's still reliable. Pag hindi na, malayo na, then you decide whether this is already for repair, adjustment, or replacement. Please take note na hindi dahil luma na yung gamit ay hindi na to accurate. It will depend on how well you preserve the measuring instrument then, and how well you maintain those things then. PPM is already on its 22nd year doing the calibration, and mind you, we still have standards that we are still using up to this point. And this is like, for example, the standard masses. So we have this class F1. These are already with us for many years. So in that case, these are measuring instruments that still you can make use of for the calibration. Thank you very much.
Sige po. Sige sir. Next question po. Most end users or testing lab were not familiar with the capabilities of calibration service providers. Some calibration labs have the capability but not covered in their scope of accreditation. Do calibration service labs discuss such shortcomings to its customers?
Sorry, what's the last statement?
Do calibration service labs discuss such shortcomings to its customers?
When you say that it's not part of the scope of calibration, when the shortcomings that you mentioned there,
do calibration last sentence po tayo. Do calibration service labs discuss such shortcomings to its customers?
yes, of course, supposed to be. In our case, in Premier Physics, we have a customer care, so they are the one who is in charge of discussing the requirements. In terms of the technical requirements, in terms of the capability for 725 scopes, that is being published then. For other things, things that we need to let's say to add on our scopes, then we really discuss that one with our customers.
Yes. For our last 5 question na po tayo. can you give us a sample on how to factor in the uncertain of measurement to the result gained from actual measurement testing?
How to factor?
Uh, how to factor in the uncertain of the measurement to the result gained from actual measurement or testing?
We would like to discuss this further with you on these things, but just to give you a heads up on that. Of course, the measurement uncertainty going to make use of, you have to, it's either you have to add or subtract on the measurement results that you have there after getting the correction. So you make use of the measurement uncertainty, okay? So you have to place there the plus or the minus. So for you to be able to establish kung nasaan yung true value. But you also have to add or subtract the correction that you have there against the calibration results. I hope to discuss this one further with you in a longer. So most probably you can send me an email for this one.
Next question po.
All right.
Wait lang sir, naulit yung question na to. Ito na lang po. How about the factory calibrated of an equipment which is commonly happened upon purchase? Is it considered acceptable to be used? If considered, how about the calibration validity of it?
Many measuring instruments are claimed to be factory calibrated. But if it's factory calibrated, supposedly you have there the requirements based on the result of the calibration certificate. It is a sad reality whenever I have to audit companies then, when they have to show me the calibration certificate being given by a supplier, these are not within the requirements of the 17025 calibration certificate. And it is also sad to note that sometimes they will just have to place their pass or fail. And in many cases, they will not place their fail. They just have to place there that it passed the requirements based on this sampling that they had. In my opinion, if you're going to look at a factory calibrated na sinasabi nila na report or na measuring instrument, it is a must that you ask the supplier to provide you a traceable calibration certificate for that. So meaning you will have there the requirements as like, for example, the traceability, the environmental conditions, the measurement uncertainty, and of course, the results of measurements then. So I would suggest whenever you would like to buy measuring instruments, make it a point that it has a calibration certificate. Validity of that will depend on the type of measuring instrument that you are using.
Thank you po.
Thank you.
Next question po. Is there a database of list of equipments that need to be calibrated in a laboratory? Some equipments are not that critical in achieving an effective output.
Yes, you need to have one. You need to have a list of measuring instruments that you are using. Before they call it the IMTE, because you have to have the list of all those things. Once you have the list of those measuring instruments, I would recommend also that you have placed there, of course, information about the traceability, information about the measurement uncertainty, and of course, calibration interval for that, and many other data that you may need also.
Yes po. For our last question po. Do we have any sets of guidelines on the use of gas calibrators where we use gas to calibrate the multi-gas meters that we have? Or should we still need to send out our meters for calibration to an external lab because we don't have one on site? I'm specifically referring to iBird MX6, where gas calibrators are purchased with the meter.
Okay. These gases are supposed to be calibrated. This portable gas boilers are supposed to be calibrated, and it's supposed to be done using a certified reference material. If you have a certified reference material, you may do the verification for that. So it's something that you need to check is the traceability of the gases that you're using. Reference documents, of course, we have several reference documents that we make use of for the calibration of portable gas detectors. And of course, you may want to look at documents coming from OIML or probably ISO documents that you're going to have for those things then. I would suggest if you would like to have it calibrated, do it with a third-party calibration service provider. And you must see that they are providing traceable results for that. At the same time, they're going to issue a calibration certificate for that one. There's nothing wrong about doing the internal verification of the gas portable meters, provided that these gases are traceable. Sometimes you will be buying a portable gas monitors equipped with a cylinder to do the verification. But doing those requirements, then you have to look whether these are all traceable and provided with measurement uncertainty then. All right, thank you very much. If you would like me to discuss further on those things, please feel free to send me an email or probably send an email to our team then.
Thank you po, sir. Baka may gusto pa kayong dagdag, sir, or anything to promote para ma-reach po kayo ng mga ating mga viewers.
Well, basically, I would like to thank OSHC for this opportunity for us to share our knowledge and experience in terms of metrology and calibration. We're doing the calibration for the past many years already. This is our 22nd year of doing the calibration. But in my case, I've been working at the National Metrology Laboratory for almost 10 years prior to doing the calibration for this. And of course, we, aside from calibration, what we also do, we do the inspection of measuring instruments. So by safety cabinets that's being done, drainage integrity tests that's being done also, load testing. These are the things that keeps us busy. Thermal mapping is one of the niche of this service that we are doing. So when you say thermal mapping, the storage areas of your facility, cold chain, we thermal map those things. So to make it a point that you are confident enough, you have peace of mind whenever you have to make use of those temperature controlled enclosures. If you have further questions and about the requirements in terms of metrology and calibration, please feel free to send us an email or probably give us a call. We will always be happy to share with you our knowledge, experience, and skills in terms of metrology and calibration. So marami pong salamat sa pakikinig ngayong araw at sana po ay meron kayong natutunan sa aming konting na-share sa inyo. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you rin po, Engineer Roxanne, for sharing your knowledge and sa inyong team with Ma'am Sheila and Ma'am Gretel po. Thank you po. And ngayon po, pupunta po tayo sa our closing remarks with Ma'am Evelyn C. Tandayo, Chief Division of Environment Control Division. Ma'am?
Yes, thank you very much, Timothy. And yes, very thankful po, no? The OSHC is really very thankful to Engineer Roxanne Rojas and to Ms. Sheila and Ms. Gretel for this opportunity, no, na mapaliwanag po natin regarding the calibration of equipment because we all know na marami po talagang katanungan regarding this. And your information that you shared ay talagang will help, no, in ensuring the safety and health as well of the workers because we know the importance of using these measuring equipment that are calibrated and of course periodically nag-undergo ng preventive maintenance, no? Mahalaga po, no, in establishing and in the evaluation of the different hazards in the workplace that we will be able to quantify, no, yung pong ating pong mga presence ng mga hazards po in the workplace. And of course, magiging maganda lang din po ng ating pong pag-evaluate and pag-assess ng condition if we are using calibrated and well maintained mga equipment natin, measuring equipment. That is why we saw the importance po no, of sharing this information with all our OSH advocates, because having a well-calibrated equipment po will really give us, no, yung confidence and ensure po na yung ating pong ginagawa ay talagang naayon with the standards, and of course, this will also ensure the safety and health of our workers. So this opportunity is really very, very important to us, that we were able to invite Engineer Roxanne Rojas and his team, no, para po dito sa mga information na ganito, na alam po natin na all of us, no, ay nangangailangan ng information, because all of us are having our equipment calibrated, be it in the production, be it on measuring equipment, no, and testing equipment, no, and alam naman po natin na requirement din po ito, not merely for compliance, no, but really to ensure, no, yung pong ginagawa natin ay naayon sa standards. So with that, again, from the management and staff of Occupational Safety and Health Center, we would like to thank Engineer Roxanne Rojas, Ms. Gretel Dueños, and of course, Ms. Sheila de la Cruz for this opportunity, and of course, for sharing their knowledge and their expertise to all our participants. And we hope also that sa atin naman po mga participants, that you were able to gain, no, the correct information regarding the calibration of our equipment, and of course, how we'll be able to interpret yung mga certificate of calibration. No, hindi lang po yan basta nire-receive natin. No, kailangan po ay ma-interpret natin ng tama at malaman po natin yung proper use po ng mga certificate of calibrations na ito. And with that, from our Executive Director, Noel C. Binag, maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. And of course, to our Training and Public Information Division for organizing